Long ago, in a vast and prosperous land where rivers shimmered like silver threads and mountains stood like ancient guardians, there existed a kingdom known for peace, justice, and abundance. At its heart stood a magnificent palace of white stone and golden domes. This kingdom was ruled by a wise old king, and his kind-hearted queen rulers loved not because they were feared, but because they were fair. For decades, the king had protected his people from war, guided them through hardship, and ensured that no child slept hungry and no voice went unheard. But time, the greatest conqueror of all, had begun to slow him. His hair had turned white, his hands trembled slightly, and his steps no longer echoed with youthful strength. One quiet evening, as the sun dipped behind the palace towers, the king stood at his balcony and whispered to himself, "A kingdom needs a strong future, even when its king grows weak." The queen, graceful and compassionate, stood beside him. She had always been his greatest strength. Where the king ruled with law, she ruled with love. Where he judged, she healed. She visited villages, listened to widows, comforted children, and taught the royal family that power without kindness is empty. Together, they had been blessed with 3 sons, each unique, each believing he was destined to rule. The eldest son, Adwin, was tall, commanding, and fearless. He trained with soldiers, mastered weapons, and believed a king must rule through strength and discipline. The army admired him, but pride lived quietly in his heart. The middle son, Arin, was intelligent and ambitious. He studied politics, trade, and alliances. He believed a kingdom could be ruled by clever planning and wealth. His words were smooth, but his heart often calculated more than it cared. The youngest son, Adward, was different. He listened more than he spoke. He helped servants, spoke kindly to strangers, and believed leadership meant service. Many thought him weak, but the queen often smiled and said, "A gentle heart sees what proud eyes miss." One morning, the old king summoned the entire court. All 3 princes stood before him. "My sons," the old king said, his voice steady but tired, "I have ruled this land for many years. Now I must choose who will rule after me." The hall fell silent. "I will not choose by age, strength, or clever words. I will choose by wisdom, kindness, and worth." The old king raised his hand. "There will be 3 trials. He who completes them with a true heart shall inherit the crown." The brothers bowed, each confident in his own way. For the first trial, the king announced, "Bring me a beautiful puppy, one that is intelligent, obedient, and worthy of a king." The next morning, all 3 princes departed. The eldest prince rode a powerful horse with soldiers, visiting wealthy breeders. The second prince traveled on a grand elephant, offering gold for rare dogs. The youngest prince quietly entered the deep jungle. Deep within the forest, the youngest prince discovered something impossible: a beautiful castle, hidden among ancient trees. Its silver towers rose above the vines, and moonlight shimmered softly upon its walls. As he approached, the great gates opened on their own. Out walked cats walking upright, cats wearing elegant suits and flowing gowns, speaking with gentle, musical voices. "Welcome, noble prince," they said with graceful bows. From the moment Prince stepped inside, the prince was treated not as a stranger, but as an honored guest. The cat community prepared warm chambers for him, laid out feasts of fragrant food, and filled the halls with soft music played on tiny golden instruments. They guided him through the castle gardens, where lanterns glowed among flowers, and listened with sincere interest to every word he spoke. Days passed peacefully. The prince laughed, rested, and found joy he had not known for a long time. The cats tended to his needs before he could even speak them, bringing fresh water after his travels, mending his torn cloak, and offering quiet companionship when he wished for silence. For the first time on his journey, he felt truly at home. At the heart of the castle lived the white cat, graceful, wise, and calm. Her eyes held the depth of untold stories, and her voice carried both kindness and quiet strength. She listened carefully as the prince explained his father's challenge and the reason for his journey. When the time came for him to leave, the castle gathered to bid him farewell. The white cat stepped forward and gently placed a single shining apple into his hand. "Do not doubt," she said softly. "This gift holds more than it appears. When you reach your father," she continued, "place this in his hands, and it shall become exactly what your heart seeks." With gratitude and wonder in his eyes, the prince bowed deeply, unaware that this simple act of trust would. After many days, the three princes finally returned to the kingdom, each arriving with confidence and pride. The eldest prince rode in first, leading a strong and fierce hunting dog, trained to obey every command without hesitation. Soon after, the second prince entered the court with a rare and elegant dog, its coat shining and its movements refined, clearly raised among nobles. At last came the youngest prince, empty-handed except for a single apple resting quietly in his palm. The court whispered in confusion, and some even smiled in mockery. But when the young prince placed the apple into his father's hands, a soft golden glow filled the hall. Before their eyes, the apple transformed into a beautiful, intelligent puppy, gentle yet alert, as if born to serve a king. The old king rose slowly from his throne, wonder shining in his eyes. Deeply impressed by what he had witnessed, he praised his youngest son but did not yet end the trial. With a thoughtful smile, the king announced that another challenge still awaited, for the crown must be earned not once, but proven again. For the second challenge, old king declared, "Bring me something thinner than paper, yet stronger than silk, something rare and worthy of a king." The princes bowed, each already certain of his own success. The eldest prince wasted no time. Believing strength and wealth could solve any problem, he rode swiftly across the kingdom with a caravan of guards and servants. He visited distant cities, famous for their master weavers and craftsmen. Silk merchants spread out their finest fabrics. Armorers presented metal threads hammered thinner than parchment. Scholars offered ancient scrolls made from rare fibers. The prince spent gold generously. At last, he chose a fabric woven from spider silk, smooth, delicate, and said to be stronger than steel. "This," he declared confidently, "will surely satisfy my father." Yet deep within his heart, he felt no certainty, only pride in his purchase. The middle prince chose a different path. Rather than travel far, he summoned inventors, scholars, and traders to him. He studied books, measured materials, tested fibers, and calculated strength. After many days, he selected a thin sheet crafted from pressed crystal threads, nearly transparent, carefully engineered, and reinforced by secret methods. "It is rare," he said to himself, smiling, "and rarity impresses kings." But his choice was born of cleverness. The youngest prince, however, felt uncertain. He rode quietly back into the deep forest. He did not search markets or command craftsmen. Instead, he returned to the enchanted castle of the white cat. When she saw him again, her eyes softened. "You have returned," she said gently, "and I know why." The prince bowed. "My father asked for something thinner than paper, yet stronger than silk," he said. "I do not seek glory, only to honor his trust." The white cat listened in silence. Then she led him to a chamber lit by moonlight. From a silver chest, she removed a handkerchief woven from moon silk, so fine it seemed made of air itself. "Strength is not always loud," she said. "Some things endure because they are made with care." She placed it in his hands. Days later, the three princes stood before their father. The eldest stepped forward first. He presented the spider silk fabric. The king examined it, tugged gently, and it stretched, but weakened. "It is impressive," the king said, "but it is still bound by earthly limits." The second prince offered his crystal thread sheet. The king admired its clever design, but when tested, a small tear appeared at its edge. "Skillful," the king said, "yet fragile." Finally, the youngest prince stepped forward. He unfolded the moon silk handkerchief. It shimmered softly. The king pulled at it harder and harder. It did not tear. He held it up to the light. It remained whole. The court fell silent. When the second trial ended, the king did not celebrate. Instead, he looked thoughtfully at his three sons and spoke one final time. "For the third and final task," he said, "bring me a woman who can stand beside you as a partner for life, not chosen for beauty alone, but for wisdom, courage, and a noble heart." The words carried great weight. The princes bowed and departed, each guided by his own belief of what made a worthy queen. The eldest prince rode to distant kingdoms, seeking royal alliances. He met princesses adorned in gold and jewels, daughters of powerful rulers. Their beauty was undeniable, their manners flawless. Yet each meeting felt like a negotiation, not a connection. In his heart, the eldest prince sought a queen who would strengthen his rule, but he never asked whether she would share his burdens. The middle prince chose carefully and strategically. He studied noble families, their influence, their wealth, and their political strength. He found a refined lady of intelligence and ambition, whose words were sharp and whose mind matched his own. But their conversations were filled with plans, not compassion. They spoke of power, never of purpose. The youngest prince felt no fear, only clarity. He did not search distant kingdoms or glittering courts. He returned to the quiet forest, where moonlight filtered through ancient trees, and the air carried the memory of kindness. At the enchanted castle, the white cat awaited him. "My father asks for a partner for life," the prince said softly. "Not a queen chosen for beauty or power, but one chosen by the heart." The white cat grew silent. Her eyes reflected both hope and sorrow. At last, she spoke. "Long ago, a dark curse bound me and my people. We were turned into cats, hidden from the world. There is only one way to break this spell: if you kiss my forehead freely, without knowing what you will gain." The prince stepped closer. She closed her eyes. In that moment, he did not see a curse or a test, only a soul that had shown him warmth when he was lost. With a gentle kiss, given in trust and compassion, the magic shattered. Light filled the castle. The white cat became a beautiful woman, and the curse lifted from every heart within those walls. She looked at him and smiled, not as a spellbound creature, but as a free soul. "Will you walk beside me?" he asked. "Yes," she replied. "Not as a reward, but as a choice." Hand in hand, they returned to the king. The day the princes returned, the palace bells rang softly, calling the court and the people together. The eldest prince arrived first, riding proudly through the gates with a noble princess at his side, her robes heavy with gold, her crown bright with jewels. Their steps were confident, their smiles formal, as though the future were already decided. Soon after came the second prince, walking with a graceful lady of sharp intelligence and royal bearing. Their words were measured, their glances thoughtful, as if every step had been carefully planned. At last, as the sun lowered toward the horizon, the youngest prince entered the kingdom. He did not come with fanfare or guards. He walked quietly beside a young woman whose beauty was gentle rather than dazzling, whose eyes held both wisdom and kindness. The people noticed something different. She greeted them with warmth, and the prince walked not ahead of her, nor behind her, but beside her. The old king watched them all from his throne. He said nothing at first. Instead, he observed. He saw how the eldest prince spoke more than he listened. He saw how the second prince calculated every word, And then he saw how the youngest prince and the young woman moved together in quiet harmony, supporting, respecting, and understanding one another without a single command. The old queen leaned toward the king and whispered, "Look not at their crowns, but at their hearts." The king rose slowly, the hall falling silent. "My sons," he said, his voice filled with emotion, "you have each completed the trials. You have shown courage, cleverness, and ambition." He turned to the eldest prince. "You sought strength." He turned to the second prince. "You sought strategy." Then he faced the youngest prince. "But you," he said gently, "sought kindness, trust, and love, and in doing so you freed others before yourself." The king stepped down from the throne and took the young woman's hands. "You are not here because of magic or beauty alone," he said. "You stand here because your heart matches his." The hall held its breath. The king lifted the crown and placed it upon the youngest prince's head. "Kneel no longer as a son," he declared. "Rise as the king of this land." Then, turning to the young woman, he placed the queen's crown upon her head. "Rise as the queen, chosen not by power, but by love." The people erupted in joy. The bells rang louder than ever before. And as the old king stepped back, peace filled his heart, for he knew, at last, that the kingdom would be safe. Not because it was ruled by the strongest, but because it was guided by the kindest.